It is also our pleasure to welcome back to Holy Blossom Temple Toby, Molly, Henriette, and Dove Helfman. I know they're checking out all their old hiding places, right? Scattered throughout the campus. And they're here to visit with family and friends. They're here because Gemma has a summer camp that she still runs in Toronto. And lucky for us, they're also here to bring a little Torah. Rabbi Jordan Helfman really needs no introduction. He served our congregation well for 8.5 years as assistant rabbi and associate rabbi. And he has gone since December to lead a congregation called Swezers, which is probably the only congregation that has a funnier name than Holy Blossom Temple. Swezers stands for Southwest Essex and Settlement Reform Synagogue. And as you'll hear, this was the first synagogue which our own Rabbi Marmer served. So thank you, Rabbi Helfman, for taking a break from vacation to come back to the Bima and teach us.
First, I want to thank Rabbi Splansky for the invitation to address you all this evening and to be back in these really special spaces which make up Holy Blossom Temple. And as Rabbi Splansky alluded to, I'm going to be mentioning and teaching a bit from the words of Rabbi Dov Marmer, and his office was just over there, if you'll remember as well. Many of you, I'm sure, will have participated in Rabbi Marmer's funeral online and heard Rabbi Splansky's eloquent and moving tribute to her teacher and to a teacher that inspired by his presence as well as by his absence. And as Rabbi Splansky mentioned, I'm now serving the congregation he called the bride of his youth, the first of his communities, located to the east of the East End of London. And my reflections of that congregation match his own. It's a lovely place with some of the most welcoming and caring people you can find outside of Toronto. People seeking to walk through life in England together as Jews. And that's a bit of what I want to unpack with you this evening. What does it mean when I say that here in Toronto, we have one of the most lovely and inspiring Jewish communities, and in England there's a caring group of people navigating life as Jews? So as I walked into the synagogue this evening, next to a beautiful tribute to Rabbi Marmer were free copies. And I believe that they're on very short supply. No, I believe there's boxes in the building. So please don't hesitate to walk out with your very own copy of On Being a Jew, a Reform Perspective by Rabbi Marmer. And you will find on page 102, an article entitled, London to Toronto, Personal Impressions. And in his article, he mentions one of the points of difference between the two cities. He says that in London, there are more kosher butchers per capita than there are here. But in Toronto, there are Jewish bookshops. Now, if you just think about this neighborhood, you can get a real feel for that difference, right? If you walk just north to Eglinton, you will find Nortowns, which is kosher style. Kosher style, right? Which is great. It's what most people in our community want in their Jewish butcher. And further down that way, right, there is Israel's. There is a Jewish bookstore right up the road. It's gone? It's even further up the road that way now. Things change in 6 months. In the pandemic, it's true. It's true. But on my local high street in Barkingside, there is no Jewish bookstore. And I would add no demand for one beyond the occasional bar mitzvah card. Right? I'll find many posts in the Jewish Facebook groups, which I'll mention in a minute, of people looking for a good bar mitzvah card, instead finding ones that either the Hebrew's not right or they have crosses or all kinds of things that Israel's just would not sell and would know not to sell as it is. But next to the card shop, there is a kosher-style bakery, Peppermin's, which sells great challah, by the way, but not with the streusel. That's only in Toronto that you get that. And just past it, of course, is the kosher butcher, which is a center of community which people travel to from across the area in order to make sure they have food for their Shabbat tables, because I would say 30, 40, 50, 60% of my congregation only eats kosher meat, as you would expect in a Reform community in England. This obsession with ethnic identity through legislation, through legalistic ritual, infuses every aspect of Jewish communal life in England. You may know that the Facebook groups in Toronto are divided between the establishment, Everything Jewish Toronto, and the alternative, Jewish Toronto Actively Anti-Racist. In my local area, the groups are labeled the alternative, Jewish Essex for All, and the establishment, Essex K, standing, of course, for Essex Kosher. And if you dare to post a non-hechsher product on Essex K, you'll be hearing about it. Kind of like the recent electric headline in the Jewish Chronicle, one of the main communal newspapers. Animals should be stunned before shechita, report to Reform rabbis says. Animals should be stunned before shechita, right before they are shechted, before the animals turned into kosher meat. It should be stunned, says a report to Reform rabbis. In response, the Jewish News, the alternative paper, published the measured headline, "Stunningly Reckless. Shechita UK attacks ignorant Reform report on kosher meat." Now, this is, of course, a tempest in a teacup. It's a headline about a report submitted to the Reform Rabbinic Group in England. Could you imagine the newspaper headlines here if the Reform Rabbinic Group tackled pre-stunning before kosher slaughter? There wouldn't be any, right? One of my conversion students recently spoke to work colleagues about the meaning of Shabbat that she had learned in the class, and how for her family it meant becoming screen-free. And her colleagues looked at her quizzically and said, "But do you even know what time Shabbat comes in?" Because, of course, that ritual element is a key part of Jewish identity and what it means to be a British Jew. In Toronto, here, you have an inspiring Jewish community, a community of individuals striving towards a deeper understanding of how Judaism infuses your modern lives. It is a commendable inner journey of learning and choosing Judaism again and again. While in the British Jewish community, you can feel the ethnic difference, the othering by the political establishment, the feeling of living in a place where you are valued but not quite us. To be a Jew in Toronto is a journey of bookshops. In England, it is a ritual framework of otherness, where the community comes together to embrace that otherness as empowering. Of course, these are generalizations, but it still sets up paradigms we can learn from. Rabbi Marmer introduced some more of that ethnic identity and ritual here. Shacharit, Mariv, creating ritual moments he passed on through his students, Rabbi Moskowitz, Rabbi Splansky. I will do my best to work in the UK. I'm not sure that I will ever get to having a bookshop near me. It is the Amazon age after all, and the demand for bookshops in general, as you can all tell by Israel's having to move locations, is no longer as popular. But maybe for book clubs and the thick social connections among the small groups of people choosing Jewishness again and again here. And I know that there is still work to be done to lean into the meaningful ritual that is part of Rabbi Marmer's legacy. The daily Shachri group here is larger than my Friday night services in London. That says something of his and his students' success and the special place that this community creates through creating community. But we could all do more. Every year an email comes out from the synagogue asking if you'd want to purchase a lulav and an etrog for yourself. In fact, Alana used to send the email, I know. This year, maybe you want to build a sukkah and have a place you can invite guests outdoors and distanced, if that's all you feel comfortable with. Maybe, though, now that most everyone is vaccinated, you're ready to invite guests to your Shabbat table. When is the last time you had guests to your Shabbat table? There's some guests here that I personally think you should consider inviting, not only the people to your right and your left, behind you, in front of you, but also, of course, your new rabbis, Sam and Eliza. Inviting them, I hope you will invite them to dinner and then invite them again and again. Invite them to your cottages even. And if they're good guests, invite them back. Have some other congregants over. Invite them to your table. I know Avra regularly invites the rabbis to her Shabbat table, Aryeh, and there's many others here that I know just haven't thought of it and hopefully will begin to now. Festival tables as well. I know the homes that invited my family to their festival tables made us feel welcome here. Who will adopt your new rabbis? I know that it takes 2 to 3 years to feel like you belong to a place. And I know Holy Blossom can help it happen faster. We may have more kosher butchers and you bookstores, but the two need each other, the joy and the obligation, the ritual and the relational. Let's keep the cross-pollination happening, the friendships and the travel. Together we can build a stronger, more well-rounded Jewish world. A Jewish world proud and crafted in Rabbi Marmer's legacy. One that has a place for all of us around the Shabbat table, the festival table. And with that, I invite you to come and visit me in London, to the Southwest Essex and Settlement Reform Synagogue, Swezzers, in Newbury Park on Oaks Lane. And I look forward to seeing you both in person and online. Shabbat Shalom.